Imagine keeping the lights on for years, racking up a bill of nearly $500,000 and never paying a single dime.
It sounds like a bad movie plot,
Right.
right? Or maybe some kind of glitch. But what we are looking at today is a very real, very calculated fraud ring right here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And folks, this is not just about a few skip payments. This is about a group that allegedly manipulated the system, stole the identities of honest, hardworking people, and even deceased folks, and basically left the rest of us footing the bill.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I am your host, and today we are unpacking a story that is equal parts impressive digital engineering and just, well, infuriating theft. We have a stack of source reports today from WRAL, Hoodline, the North Carolina Beat, and some very heated community threads from Reddit.
It is great to be here. And I have to say, when I first looked at the numbers in these reports, I had to double-check them. It is a massive reality check for Duke Energy.
It really is. So let's jump right into the news hook because this has been breaking over the last few months and just culminated this past February in 2026. We are talking about a major bust involving a fraud ring targeting Duke Energy. The total loss is a staggering $495,904.62.
Let that number sink in for a second for everyone listening. Nearly $500,000. That is the price of a beautiful home in a lot of neighborhoods. And it was not stolen from a bank. It was stolen in kilowatts.
Exactly. And law enforcement has arrested 3 key suspects. You have the alleged mastermind, Raphael Stefan Williams, and then his alleged accomplices, Desmond Person and Shania R. Dove. Dove was just arrested recently in February.
Right, and this was not some simple case of a guy falling behind on his bills and hoping the power company would just, look the other way. The sources call this a complex shell game. They were using identity theft on an industrial scale.
That is the part that really gets me. Our mission today is to figure out how someone steals that much power. Like, why go through this much trouble for electricity instead of just stealing cash? And what are everyday people saying about it? Because the internet has a lot of thoughts on how these big monopolies handle our money.
Oh, absolutely. When a massive utility company gets scammed, people start asking tough questions about competence and about law and order. But before we get to the public reaction, we need to understand the mechanics. How did Raphael Williams actually pull this off?
Let's look at Williams. He was arrested back in October 2025. The reporting from the North Carolina Beat and Hoodline is very detailed. He is facing 15 felony charges. He allegedly accessed computers, obtained property by false pretense, committed financial card fraud. The list just keeps going.
Yeah, and look at the bond amount the judge set. A $1.3 million bond.
Wow.
That is incredibly high for a nonviolent property crime. It tells you the courts view this as a highly sophisticated, dangerous operation. It's a serious breakdown of law and order.
The sources say he didn't just ignore the bills, he actively hacked the payment system. But let's clarify that word, hacked. Because he wasn't writing code to smash through a firewall. He used over 20 separate transaction cards to make bogus online payments.
Right, so let's break down the actual how here, because it is fascinating. Based on the warrants, this looks like a classic exploitation of the banking float.
The float. Okay, explain that for us.
Sure. Think about how you pay your utility bill online. You type in a routing number or you use a debit card and you click submit. The utility company's computer instantly sees that action and says, okay, payment received, keep the lights on.
Right, it gives you credit right away, instant gratification.
Exactly. But on the back end, the actual hard cash has not moved yet. It takes maybe 24 or 48 hours for the utilities bank to talk to your bank.
Yeah.
Williams basically lived inside that 48-hour gap. He submits a payment. The system accepts it on good faith, but the card is fake, or the account is totally empty. 3 days later, the payment finally bounces. But by then, Williams has already submitted another payment using a different fake identity or card. He just keeps resetting the clock.
So he is just juggling. He keeps the ball in the air so the system never officially flags him as unpaid.
Precisely. And he did this with over 20 different cards. Think about the labor involved there. It is a full-time job managing that many fake transactions. You have to know exactly when the Duke Energy system is going to update so you can hit it with a new fake payment right before they cut the power.
And the numbers he was using are just wild. The warrants found specific bogus payments he tried to push through. One chunk was for $100,360.93. Another was for $100,389.30.
Which is just bizarre.
Right. I mean, who has a $100,000 residential power bill? If an average hardworking citizen misses a $50 payment, they get a shutoff notice immediately. But this guy pushes through $100,000 and the computer doesn't catch it.
It is a massive failure of corporate oversight. It suggests their automated systems just blindly accept inputs as long as the account numbers format correctly. Or, it suggests he was getting incredibly arrogant, testing the limits of what he could get away with.
It definitely feels arrogant. Remember, this scheme went on from October 2023 all the way to March 2025.
Yeah.
That is almost a year and a half of stealing power while everyone else pays their fair share.
Which brings us to the big why. Why electricity? Usually, organized crime rings go after liquid assets. Cash, cars they can chop up, electronics they can fence.
Right, you can't put electricity in your trunk and sell it on the street corner.
No, you cannot. We have some great insight here from Professor Eileen Taylor from the Poole College of Management. She is a fraud expert, and she pointed out this exact anomaly.
Yeah, she noted that most fraudsters want liquid assets, things you can convert to money immediately. Stealing a utility service is what they call consumption fraud. You steal it to use it.
And she brought up a great point. This was a lot of work for one person. Managing 20 fake identities, tracking billing cycles, generating fake cards. If you put those same hours into a real, honest job, you would make a decent living.
Exactly, without risking 15 felony charges.
So it implies this was not just about saving a few bucks on his own bill. Criminals often monetize this by acting as a shadow utility company. They tell people, pay me $500 cash, and I will make sure your power stays on for the year.
So he is the middleman, taking cash from people who want to cheat the system. But to pull off that shell game, you need ammunition. And in this case, the ammunition was stolen identities.
And this is where the story shifts from a clever computer trick to a truly predatory crime. They were not just making up names like John Smith. They used real people's data.
Let's talk about those accomplices and the actual human cost here. Desmond Person was arrested in December 2025, and one of the charges there is exploitation of an older or disabled adult.
That is just despicable. It takes this from a white-collar crime to directly harming vulnerable citizens. They're also charged with trafficking stolen identities. It implies they harvested data from people who maybe aren't tech-savvy, like the elderly, and used their good names to run up $500,000 in debt.
The sources even mention they used the names of deceased individuals.
Which is a nightmare for grieving families. Imagine you were trying to settle your parents' estate, and you suddenly get a massive collections notice from Duke Energy for a house they haven't lived in for a year. It ruins credit, it tangles up the legal process, and it is just morally bankrupt.
It really is. And then the third suspect, Shania R. Dove, was arrested just this February. She is charged with felony identity theft and conspiracy.
The conspiracy charge is the key. It proves this was not a lone wolf. It was an organized ring. The Wake County Sheriff's Office, under Sheriff Willie Rowe, started probing this in July 2025 after Duke finally flagged the suspicious activity.
Sheriff Rowe put out a strong statement about holding those responsible accountable, which is great, but it took a long time to get from suspicious activity to actual handcuffs.
Yes.
And that delay, that massive gap where criminals were just operating freely, is really fueling the public anger. We looked at some community discussions on Reddit, specifically a thread in the Happening in Atlanta community.
Now, some listeners might wonder, why do folks in Atlanta care about a bust in North Carolina?
Right, but the sentiment is universal because utility companies are regional monopolies. Whether you deal with Duke Energy or Georgia Power or Southern Company, normal folks feel trapped. You have no choice. If rates go up, you pay.
Exactly. And when honest ratepayers see Duke getting scammed for $500,000, they get angry because they know who is eventually going to cover that loss.
Yep. The commenters on Reddit are very skeptical. There is this huge insider theory going around. One user named Charles posted, and I quote, "That lady had to have had some inside help in order to pull that off."
It is a completely natural reaction. When we talked about those $100,000 bogus payments earlier, a normal citizen looks at that and thinks, there is no way the computer just missed that. Someone on the inside had to turn off the alarms.
Now, we need to be clear. The official source reports do not show any evidence of an inside job. We are just recording what the community is saying. But it highlights a total lack of trust in these big institutions.
People assume the monopoly is either incredibly incompetent or corrupt. And this ties into a broader anxiety about the breakdown of trusted systems. Another user, Anthony, brought up the big First Energy trial in Ohio.
Oh, the massive bribery scheme.
Right, a huge scandal involving the Speaker of the Ohio House and the utility company. Anthony praised the FBI for handling that Ohio case, but then he pivoted to his frustration with local government right there in Fulton County. He mentioned District Attorney Fonnie Willis.
Yeah, his comment was basically saying, since Mrs. Willis didn't do anything with that whistleblower case against Southern Company, maybe the Atlanta FBI can take a look.
And again, we are just sharing the community's perspective here, but it is a very telling comment. It shows a deep populist frustration. People feel like local officials are distracted by politics while the actual machinery of law and order breaks down. They see a two-tiered system.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Exactly. A working-class guy gets his power shut off for being late, but a criminal ring steals $500,000, and it takes years to stop them.
So what is being done to stop the next Raphael Williams? According to Duke Energy, they are deploying new AI-driven tools specifically to detect scams on websites and social media.
It is essentially an arms race. The criminals use automated bots to juggle 20 fake accounts, so the corporation has to use AI to try and catch the patterns before they hit the billing system.
But Duke is also putting the burden back on the consumer. They're notifying affected customers and giving advice like, if you get a strange payment request, call the number on your actual bill.
Yeah, which is basic but necessary. Because, frankly, you have to be your own security guard these days.
Yeah.
You cannot rely on a massive corporation to protect your personal data.
Yeah, if you get a letter thanking you for starting service at an address you've never been to, you have to act. Don't call the number on the weird letter, go to the official website.
Right, because criminals will send fake fraud alerts just to trick you into handing over your real information.
It is exhausting. Honest citizens have to be hypervigilant just to exist. But I want to circle back to the core loss here. Nearly $500,000. Duke Energy is going to write that off.
They will.
Yeah.
But we all know how corporate math works. Corporate losses inevitably turn into rate hikes for the rest of us.
Though we pay for it.
We always pay for it. Honesty has basically become a tax that decent people pay to cover the costs of the lawless.
Honesty is a tax. That is a sobering way to put it. And looking at the sheer effort these criminals put in, the identity theft, the elder abuse, the digital shell game, it makes you wonder about the future.
How do you mean?
Well, we usually worry about organized crime smuggling drugs or stealing luxury cars, but this was a massive conspiracy focused on a basic necessity, electricity.
That is a very good point.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over. If criminals are willing to build a $500,000 criminal empire just to keep the AC running, what happens as everyday life gets more expensive? Are we looking at a future where organized crime shifts toward basic utilities? Are we going to see grocery gangs and water bill syndicates?
It is a disturbing thought. When basic order breaks down, the black market steps in. And as we saw today, the people who suffer the most are the honest, vulnerable citizens just trying to live their lives.
It is definitely something to keep an eye on. Check your bills, watch your credit reports, and stay vigilant.
Absolutely, stay safe out there.
That is it for this deep dive. We will see you next time.